And good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we want to bring in our Facebook family, so hold tight. We've got Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons on Facebook and Scott Kennedy Sports on Facebook. We'll bring them in. Hope everybody had a great weekend. And we are live, so welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast on Monday morning as we are on the very edge of free agency. And oh my God, Nick, the Falcons have some money to spend. I guess if you're going to suffer for that long, there should be a payoff at the end. And literally, there could be a payoff at the end for several players coming in because the Falcons have a boatload of cash after finally purging most of those bad contracts under the Thomas Dimitroff era, including Julio Jones, including Matt Ryan, including Deion Jones to a certain extent. And I'm pausing here just a little bit because you froze up and I think you're ready to go now.
Yeah, hopefully with this computer, Scott helped me figure that out. But yeah, the Falcons have a lot of cash, and this is something I've been a proponent of for a number of teams for a while. If you're going to rebuild, don't go in this half in, half out BS. Go for it. And I think most fans would understand it's going to be rough in the immediacy, but you're here. You have arrived through you're still rebuilding, but the rough part is over. This is now the trajectory. This is the ascendancy up where you got to be smart with your money. Of course, you don't want to go out there and just burn it because you have it there. I think the Bears are in a weird situation this year. They have to hit a cash floor to spend. I don't think the Falcons are quite there yet. But this should be a fun offseason, and you can be players. Hopefully, this is the only cycle or one of two cycles where you have to be paying free agency to bring in talent, where hopefully down the line you can be retaining your own talent with that money. But
and there will be a lot of that going on because their first draft, you have Kyle Pitts in there. AJ Terrell will be one of those guys. Chris Lindstrom will be one of those guys coming up. So there will be some money to be going back into the team. And interestingly enough, as we talk about free agency, one of those guys was a possibility this year, and so far didn't get a contract extension, hasn't been signed to a new contract, and was not franchise tagged. And Caleb McGarry, the franchise tag would have been about $18.5 million. Do you think he can get anything close to that on the open market, or do you think the Falcons took a calculated risk, or maybe decided, you know what, maybe we don't want the guy? That would seem strange to me based on how he played and was on the ascendancy last year. But it's been awfully quiet, Nick.
Yeah, I think that they want to see what the market is for him before going straight ahead. Maybe they're one of the teams that believes there's a massive difference in what you should pay. Not a massive difference, but a difference in what you should pay the left tackle to the right tackle. And maybe McGarry's like, no, tackle is tackle in this market. You see what all these right tackles are getting. I want to get paid like a great tackle, not a great right tackle.
I think it turns out it's because the right tackles are the ones hitting the market now. And then once the big left tackles hit, they'll blow right by them again. It's just that money's going up. So now that the chat's opened up a little bit, let's say good morning to some folks, including Michael Ranquillo, who was in here nice and early with us this morning. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Thank you, Michael. And just a reminder, you can find us after the fact at falconspodcast.com. If you want to find any of those places and you want to listen to it later, I link it in all the descriptions so you can check it all out. And, guys, do me a favor. And I'm going to put the Apple Pods in the chat. If you've got an Apple device or even an iTunes account, go give us a review. It really helps us a lot. We've had a lot of growth over the last couple of months after I renamed this to Falcons Podcast. People are finding us better, and the reviews help us out a lot. So I put that link in the chat. Want to say good morning to Big Al. Big Al, good morning. Joe Cannon coming in on Facebook. He says, great morning, Scott and Nick. It's a great day to kick off free agency. Raymond Collins says, good morning. Love that Falcons hat. Been a while, but I'm back with you. We're glad you are. So welcome back. Jamal says, rise up and good morning, Scott and Nick and everyone else. Today is the first day of legal tampering. I wonder what free agency and the Falcons will sign this week. I think Jesse Bates will be the first. I put him on the front cover, Nick, of our artwork. I put Jesse Bates on there. You know how the language and then the all this stuff, kind of rankles me a little bit. Now, this isn't against you, Jamal, because you're not the only one that says this, but legal tampering. It's not tampering if it's legal. That's an oxymoron. Why are we calling it legal tampering? It's not tampering. It's the opening of the contact period. That's what we would call it in college football recruiting.
Yeah, our negotiation period. Yeah.
We can't. It's not signing day, but it's the contact period. So, yeah, and that's not on you, Jamal. I get it. But it is. It opens up today, and it's astounded me, Nick, how quiet it has been around the Atlanta Falcons, because agents leak. Agents will talk. We've been in contact with this guy and this team and this team. Have they just kind of been waiting, knowing that they've got the big checkbook and they can come in, and basically the only team that can really compete with them right now is the Bears?
That's probably a lot of it. I also don't expect the Falcons to spend to the cap this season. Maybe next year you are in an interesting spot. Also, the big elephant in the room, we haven't talked about it yet. I know someone in the chat will probably be annoyed by it. Oh, that's all you guys talk about. But like Lamar Jackson is still out there. Oh, we're not interested in him. Well, everybody said that. I think it's an interesting situation with him, but that could take up a huge chunk of cap space, and that changes what you can do this offseason if that trade does happen. So again, that's the biggest what is it? Wrench in the monkey works? Monkey in the wrench works?
Wrench in the works. Yeah, that's still a possibility for sure. And I don't think the non-exclusive tag, if that was the deal that goes through, the Falcons would have to send 2 first-round picks. Okay, that's a pretty good deal. And the contract, which would be expensive. And everybody says, you're killing the cap. We just got out from that. Well, you kill the cap when you've got guys that are on the decline. If you don't think Lamar Jackson's on the decline, then $50 million a quarterback, you can still build around that, especially when you structure it so that the contract is a $20 million cap hit the first 2 years. And then by the third, fourth, and fifth years, the salary cap has probably gone up $50 million in 5 years. So it kind of pays and balances itself out. So I'm not too worried about salary cap as much as I am compensation, Nick. And if he gets through this period, this free agency period where nobody wants to, nobody wants to do the negotiating for him, a deal could still be made. So it's like a tag and trade, except in this case, you can make a different trade, I believe, with the Ravens, even though they put that clause on him, the non-exclusive.
You can trade for the non-exclusive, I believe, and then negotiate something else out there. But it'll be interesting. I mean, the biggest thing with him is he wants that Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract, and I don't think it seems like the league is pretty much crossed their arms and saying, nah, that ain't happening for nobody.
Yeah, we'll see. The guaranteed money is all that really matters. If he comes up with, here's 7 years and $250 million, which ends up being a 5-year $250 million, then fine. That's it. At the end of the day, the guaranteed money will be what matters, not necessarily the years on it, because the years can be flexible anyway. Dave says, good morning. Good morning, Dave. Steve Kennedy coming on Facebook. He says, good morning, guys. Good morning to you as well. And we won't be back on until old Steve Kennedy goes in. He's having some surgery this week. So keep thinking about him. I believe that's tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Dave says, I think the Falcons believe strongly in their O-line coach, Dwayne Ledford. They should. They absolutely should. Every single player improved last year. How often do you say that? I mean, even Chris Lindstrom ended up being the highest graded player in football on PFF. Drew Dahlman, I think, has shown a very nice trajectory the 2 years he's been in Atlanta. Eli Wilkinson comes in at left guard and plays not spectacular, but relative to what they had with Jalen Mayfield the year before and his $1.1 million salary. Wilkinson was very good, and you didn't really hear a word about Jake Matthews. That's pretty good. That's like a corner. I don't want to hear my corner's name all the time. I don't want to hear Jake Matthews' name all the time.
And Philip McGarry.
He was solid.
And then McGarry turns around year 4 of his career and has an absolutely massive bump to his play. Now, granted, I do always bring this back, Scott. I think that the scheme the Falcons ran this year was probably about as offensive line friendly as any in the league, given how run heavy they were, the different looks for the run game, the moving pockets, just the versatility and creativity in the run game and the run scheme was awesome. And it protected the offensive line from, those pure static dropbacks that we saw the year prior a lot with then that different kind of quarterback in Matt Ryan. So the scheme was able to change with a more mobile quarterback. But yeah, he's done a great job with that offensive line. I'm pretty darn jealous. Scott, for our first year doing this, everything came back to the offensive line, and last year, not so much. So credit to the offensive line coach, I think, big time for the turnaround there.
Yeah, one of the reasons I was so against taking pass catchers the first 2 years is because the offensive line was such a disaster. Okay, the offensive line looks pretty good. You still have a question. You still have questions. I'm not going to say a question mark at quarterback, but you still have questions. So if you've got the offensive line fixed and Desmond Ridder is the guy, those 2 picks were great. Yeah. They were great. If Desmond Ridder is not the guy, you're still in trouble because you still don't have a quarterback and you've just spent 3 years on Kyle Pitts.
Yeah,
that's the risk.
I agree with you. And this is also, I think, a good lesson to learn as well, is that Falcons, not that from lack of investing on the offensive line, that the offensive line was struggling, but you had 2 first-round picks on the right side there that, I mean, Lindstrom was pretty good from the beginning, but Matthews, top 8 pick on the other side, you invested heavily in it, and specifically with McGarry and Lindstrom. Sometimes there's a little bit of a latency between when you make that purchase and when you start to have the rewards of that purchase, specifically on the offensive lines. Like Broncos country screaming, offensive line, round 3 this year. Okay, that helps the unit this year, no doubt, but you might not be receiving the real ramifications, reaping the benefits, rewards of that until 2026. So it's not going to be an instant fix, specifically on the offensive line when you draft guys.
Well, and that was the problem, was Dimitroff went too long before addressing the trenches. So there was this big fall off where the offensive and defensive lines are getting thrashed at the line of scrimmage, because anybody that, if he did make a pick, it turned it out to be poor. But, I went through and there's like 6 years where there was one interior defensive lineman taken. It was, they were weak in the trenches. And then they I don't know, I wouldn't say overspent, but, Lindstrom, McGarry, 2 first-round guys. Well, it's too late. You've missed your window, to your point, but now you are getting those benefits, assuming you can re-sign your guy after 4 years.
And not to be too metaphorical here, but I've heard Daniel Jeremiah and, the former gentleman, Rick Spielman, talk about it, about the trenches. And it's like, essentially, it's trying to build a good fire. How do you build a good fire and keep it going? You continue to stoke it, add logs to it while it's still burning. If you let it die down and then throw a dry log on there with no real fire, it's just going to plop on there and you're going to get dust.
So might end up being a big cloud of smoke, maybe. Real quick on McGarry, and then I want to talk about some guys the Falcons could possibly go after. You talked about the scheme fit and how he was protected by, the scheme. Could that hold his value down and the Falcons end up getting him at a relative discount? We'd said that, $15 million I thought was going to end up being about right, which was below a franchise tag at 18.5, 19. Could it even be lower than that? Or could a team that runs something similar come in and say, this is our guy? Because as I write, every time I write about McGarry and his value, is the Falcons don't care if he doesn't fit in other people's schemes. He's a round peg, round hole for what the Falcons want to do last year. And he was very good.
Yeah, I see anywhere from 14 to 17 million APY. And I think that there's going to be a market out there for him, just because there are 64 starting tackle spots and probably only about 40 starting quality offensive tackles. And he's one of those 40 that fit. He's still relatively young. He's been healthy.
So PFF.
Yeah, so he's going
to
get a good
fourth
deal
on PFF. So he's gonna get paid. It'll be real interesting to me to see. They should have that wrapped up before the draft, so that you've got a pretty good idea going in. If they don't, then all of a sudden right tackle at the draft becomes almost a must and disappointing to a certain extent. You're like, okay, I understand it, but this guy's not going to make our team better than it was last year. There's no way a rookie is going to come into this scheme in his first year and play better than McGarry did last year. So you're actually going backwards with your number 8 pick. I don't want to see that, Nick. I don't think anybody else does too. I'd understand it. I'd absolutely understand it. You can't, all of a sudden, the strength of your teams in this offensive line, you can't let that go away. It's got to stay a strength. But some of the weaknesses, we'd like to see get stronger. I'd like to see an edge. I'd like to see another corner for to a running mate with AJ Terrell that would help the pass rush. By osmosis, it would help. I'd get it, but I don't want the Falcons to go right tackle at 8 if they don't. I don't want them have to. I want them to have that settled in free agency.
And the long-term argument for that is, if you let McGarry go, you don't think he's worth what the market is saying he's going to get paid, then you might think about that tackle signing potentially getting a chance and slipping over to Jake Matthews in a couple seasons as well by the end of the contract. A lot of times teams like to have one in positions like tackle, edge rushers, cornerback, wide receiver, even you like to have one more expensive veteran and then one rookie contract that hopefully can overtake that expensive veteran. So like from a 4-year perspective, I think that there is a vision there, but I agree with you for the 2023 season, it's probably a little bit of treading water for a team that you want to be bouncing up.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. You're maybe drafting the guy to be a left tackle. I think Jake's 32 years old. But see, the thing is I can get 3 more years of him, and that's when you get the value out of your rookie deals, because the 4th-year deal accelerates a lot, and a 5th-year option accelerates wildly for a top 10 pick. It'd be $15 million. So you're not saving a whole lot there. Jason B says, we will get the trenches right this year. DeJuan Jones in the 2nd round. I'm not sure DeJuan Jones makes it to the 2nd round right now. If he does, the Falcons pick pretty high up there, so they'd have a chance. And Keith Robbins says, let's just get Lamar and be done with it. Enough of this speculation. Yeah. Again, you could structure a contract for Lamar Jackson that would leave you with plenty of money in free agency, where you could end up with $75, $80, $90 million by the time you're done with all your moves, and you could have a $25 million cap hit, which would still be pretty high. You could work that down with bonuses and whatnot, where you could have a low cap hit, relatively speaking, for Lamar Jackson and still have a lot of fun in free agency this year. And if you get Lamar Jackson, I promise you, you're going to win now. You're not going to be afraid to spend this year for guys. No, we'll wait next year to address the edge position. No. You're going for it if you get Lamar Jackson. StreamYard's telling me I keep bouncing up and down with my internet connection, and it's starting to annoy me. So apologies if I'm coming in and out. Gigabit, it might not be fast enough right now.
Okay. Well, it's not me for once, I guess. That's crazy. I just texted Chad, made sure that he had my right address because he had my old address on the tax form that he sent me, and I panicked because I'm like, oh my God, what if the computer gets sent to the wrong place? But yeah, it will be interesting. Scott, do you have any names in the free agency market right now that are starting to intrigue you for this team? Obviously, I think that Marcus Davenport is the one that's the biggest free agent possibility. You're going to be running more of a 4-3 scheme, talented player, still an ascending player, and obviously the former player of your current your new defensive coordinator. So he's the one who, bright flashing lights, like this is the guy. I can't imagine him signing anywhere but Atlanta. You're still gonna have to pay, but I think that's just, it makes way too much sense.
I agree. There's a huge need there. There seems to be good feelings about the defensive line coach, Ryan Nielsen. There seems to be, not okay, good. We're glad he's gone. There's been nothing but positive words coming out about him. So you'd have a relationship there. The Falcons are a team on the rise up, where they've survived what, I said at the beginning of the season over and over again that this team could be better but have a worse record. Well, they ended up with the same record, and they were better. They were definitely better last year than they were in 2021. There's no doubt in my mind. And they survived cap hell to do it. Now they've got another top 10 pick and $80 million to spend and can really have some fun out there. So they need a running mate with Grady Jarrett too. How about, staying with the Saints? How about David Onyemata as well? I think he makes a lot of sense. You plug those two guys in, you'd anger the Saints fans and you'd improve on the defensive line, get Taquan Graham back. And I think you've got improvement, 2 starters right there. And I think you've improved dramatically on your front 7.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that one. What about somebody like a Von Miller or a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 2 former Saints safeties that might make some sense? I don't know if Von Bell. That's what I said.
Yeah, you said Von Miller. I'm like, that's interesting.
Okay. I thought I said Von Bell. Excuse me, Von Bell. And then also there's Jesse Bates out there. This is a pretty interesting safety class because we also talked about Jesse Bates already, like I said. And then Juwan Thornhill was awesome this season as well. So a lot of good safety options there, Scott.
Yeah, I think Jesse Bates is the one that is being linked the most frequently and most heavily with the Falcons. It's almost to the point where the Falcons are writing their name on their depth. Like Falcons fans, Falcons Twitter is writing the names on the depth chart for next year. Having him and Richie Grant there would be really nice. They're the same age, actually. I think they're both 26 years old, so they could play together for a while. Richie came into the league a little bit older. Fifth-year guy in college came in the league a little bit older, so they're the same age, even though Jesse's played 4 years already. When you said Von Miller, I was thinking, okay, older, experienced, productive edge rusher. How about Frank Clark to fit that bill? I think Von Bell makes sense. He's a former Saint. He's a middle Georgia guy. I can't remember which high school he went to, but I watched him play in the Dome when they were doing the semifinals there. So he's from Georgia. I think he makes sense as well. But when we're talking about if we go an experienced route to try and get somebody like that, the number one value guy was Brandon Graham with the Eagles.
He's back.
Older. Did he resign or is he done? Okay. But Frank Clark was just cut for salary cap reasons with the Chiefs. He could be interesting too.
And last season, he was absolutely incredible. Was Justin Houston for Baltimore for given his age, but he's
a kid. He's from Middle Georgia also. So he's saw him play in the Dome when they were doing the semifinals here. So those were fun. I liked those. Anyway.
We got Jason B coming in saying Javon Hargrave or Draymond Jones. Both interesting options for the Falcons. My one thing about this is that both of them project as more 3 technique body types. And you still have Grady Jarrett here. I think you're looking for a little bit more of a dominating 1 technique type rather than paying for a 3 technique. Also, it sounds like the 3 techniques in this free agency class are going to get paid. So do you want to use 20%, 15% of your entire salary cap, probably 20, 25 on one player on a 3 technique when you already have the likes of Grady Jarrett here?
And the other part of that is if they do go more towards a 4-3 with 2 defensive tackles and slide Grady inside, Taquan Graham is there too.
Yes.
With him coming back, he's 285, 290. What they lacked, and Abdullah Anderson fit that really well, was the nose guard, was a true nose. And Abdullah Anderson, for a practice squad free agent release veteran minimum, played really, really well. And I would love to have him back. So he's one of those free agents that you want the Falcons to re-sign. It'll be interesting to see how they want to line up, because if they do go 4-3, Taquan and Grady they're okay. They're okay. If they stay 3-4, then you need another running mate. I would like some depth with Taquan, especially, make sure that, 1, he was hurt. He's coming off an injury. And 2, is he going to be as good as he was showing last year, or was that kind of a flash in the pan? And then you want rotations with Grady Jarrett also. Draymond in a 3-4 would be solid, and Javon Hargraves would move inside. He'd be an absolute inside guy. Is he good against the pass? Draymond isn't great against the run. He's a decent pass rushing interior alignment, which those guys are awesome. Him, and if those were the 2 defensive tackles, you put those and then slide them around however you want to with Grady Jarrett, you'd be pretty good getting pressure on the quarterback or into the backfield. I won't even say quarterback, just into the backfield, Nick.
Penetrators, without a doubt. Would be interesting to see if they play. I mean, Scott, we're both like this. You would feel comfortable with Graham, but he's coming off injury, and you can never have enough quality big bodies up front.
That's where you rotate.
Yep.
That's where you have the most rotation, and you're playing all these 1-score games, and your defensive linemen are going to play 60-40. So who are your guys playing 40% of the time? The past 2 years, it's been Chicago Bears cast-offs, Tennessee Titan waves, and late round draft picks. Those are the guys that have been your reserves. So now you've got a chance to add some legit depth.
And one last thing I want to talk about here before we wrap on it up. We've talked a lot about the offensive line, defensive line, cornerback position. I know we've talked about, you have a lot of money that you could spend at the cornerback position, but is it a weird situation paying let's say a Jamel Dean, a massive contract 1 year before you're probably paying AJ Terrell? Are you looking to pay a second contract, massive, 5-year contract for a cornerback rather than just give that money to AJ Terrell when it comes down the track? Does that change how you're attacking that position in free agency?
I don't mind putting money into both of them. I don't mind having two high paid corners. And then, but the thing is then you have $15 million into your safety room also.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden I'm talking about having $60 million into my defensive backs, $60 million into my offensive line. Okay. Wide receivers, Kyle Pitts will be coming off of his, will be up for his contract soon. Next year's already year 3 for him. But those are good problems to have.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got too many good players. Let's figure it out. Okay. Those are good problems. That hasn't been a problem in Atlanta where, we'd like to keep all of these great players, but we can't afford to keep all of them. Man, that's a foreign concept in the ATL. So that would, but I'm not afraid to go out and get another corner. I would love to be able to get another guy who's looking for 1 or 2 more years.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was getting into. So you have like Jamel Dean out there who's probably going to get paid like a 5-year deal, big time money. But then you have some aging guys, maybe like a Marcus Peters who can come in for sign a 2-year contract that really sets up nicely for then you can just shift that cap savings when you move on from him over to AJ Terrell and reset that room a little bit. So again, that's kind of what I was getting into, because there's some cornerbacks on this market that are going to get massive long-term deals. And I don't know if that's you can do that if Atlanta, but does it make sense for Atlanta to do that?
Yeah, and Patrick Peterson would be a guy that's real interesting to me, who's 33, but still played at a very high level and wasn't all that expensive last year. He was making 4 in Minnesota last year. Okay, well here's 5. Who's the guy? He was playing pretty well last year and got hurt, came over from the Raiders, the cornerback. Help me out here. He was
Mullen?
No, I can't remember. Somebody in the chat will remember. I'm drawing a blank. He missed the last half of the season, started playing, had a little trouble at first, then started playing pretty well, and then he got hurt. He was the veteran opposite Terrell, a guy like that. He could be back, and I can't remember his name. So somebody help me out here.
Me right now.
If Jason, if you were talking, and Jason comes in, he says
Casey Hayward.
Hayward, yep, Casey Hayward. That's exactly who it was.
Eric Mack,
Eric
got
Mack
it. Keith
first,
Robbins,
and Julian Coffey coming in, and Keith Robbins coming in. Thank you. I would like to have him back if the finances work out, and another player like him, but a little more, but a little better, for 1 or 2 years to come in. And then if you come in and if you're able to draft that guy, if let's say the edge isn't there, you've got right tackle sorted in free agency, and I draft that guy. My top 2 priorities in this draft, Nick, edge, corner. That's what I would like to see the Falcons come away with. And it's for the reasons that we're talking about here. Cost control, talent, impact, all of those type of things, where if you're going right tackle or, offensive tackle again, you're not getting better. A starting level corner makes this team a lot better. An edge that can be a consistent pass threat again, while Ebiketie starts, improving. Lorenzo's a good depth piece who is re-signed, and you get another guy who can come in and be the alpha. This defense gets a lot better. So that's what I'm interested in as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. Again, offensive line could be there just for the identity of this team and what's going on with McGarry. And if you do go that way with the draft pick, maybe you can think about it as you're allocating your resources differently. You're kind of going even with the offensive line, but now you have an extra $18 million that you can spend on the defensive side of the ball that you wouldn't have if you paid McGarry. So it's always that ebb and flow. You got to make that decision. Right now, the Falcons decided that McGarry's whatever's the hardball offer that's going on right now with between the two, not worth what he's been asking, and he's hitting the market, and we'll see what happens.
We're going to get out of here real quick. Appreciate everybody coming in. Joe says Hayward is on a 2-year deal, so he'll be back. Hayward is on a 2-year deal, so the Falcons have the option to bring him back. That doesn't mean he will be back. It's basically a 1-year deal with a club option. Coming off an injury, his age and money makes him expendable. So I'm hoping that he can come back and play at a similar level to where he was, because he was pretty cost effective. And I like that free agency. I like that veteran in the room. But I want another guy, another upgrade to go like that one. So I would be, again, I want him to come back and be the guy that they signed for. There's some talk in here real quick Let's see about Draymond. I think being a Browns fan, the Cleveland Browns are in for Draymond Jones. Also, Jones has already said he wants to come home to Cleveland. I think that's where he ends up. Watch the Bears. Also, that's not too far away from Cleveland. Similar type of atmosphere and a lot more money. There's a lot more money. They might have a better team in Cleveland right now, but if Chicago or Atlanta can make an offer for Draymond, if that's what they really wanted to do. Eric Mack says Mayfield can replace McGarry. No, he can't. No, I'm sorry, Eric. Love you, but no, he can't. He was drafted to put pressure on McGarry and was moved to left guard, and I'm not positive he makes the team this year. They're very quiet about his injuries and everything, but they quickly said, he was battling injury, and he was sent to IR and lost. I mean, forgotten about. We'll see. I'm not positive, but if I saw Mayfield at McGarry, you're going to hear doomsday from this guy again. So if we have Mayfield at right tackle. On that note, we got to get out of here. Nick and I are going to hop over to Mile High Huddle. If you want to continue the football talk, youtube.com/Mile High Huddle. We're going to talk a little more free agency. We're going to talk about it with a little Denver Broncos spin. Appreciate everybody being in here. We will be back Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. on this channel to talk the opening of free agency. So everybody have a great Monday. Bright and sunny here in the ATL. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Peace.